Phyllis Dewar.
Well, first I want to say I wish there were a Starbucks nearby and I could buy one for everybody, because I know that this is terrible positioning. It's like the fifth from the last. But anyway, I'll try to make it, quick. And I also want to say to the woman who just spoke that I'm a kindergarten teacher, and in my classroom I recently had to test my children on the song Old MacDonald. I had to grade them on whether they were proficient, partially proficient, or couldn't remember any of it. We had a blast learning it because it's a really fun song, and I have nothing against Old MacDonald. But scoring the children on Old MacDonald, if someone can't remember the song, chances are I need to seriously consider looking into that child's, they may need some extra supports, right? So I didn't need to score the kids on that, but I'm forced to. So thank you so much. I do also appreciate the fact that you guys are here taking this time to really listen to us. And as I said, I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I find the testing, as you can imagine, alarming, counterproductive, and even harmful in my classroom. In the kindergarten grade level at my school, we do not administer standardized tests. I don't know if they do anywhere in New Jersey, but we do have hours and hours of testing that's included in our math and our ELA curriculum. And in order to paint a realistic picture of the stress and the waste of time I feel caused by kindergarten testing, or testing in the kindergarten where I am with our curriculum, which, by the way, I love our curriculum, no problem with core knowledge, allow me to bring you into my classroom to our first test prep session in September for 5- and 6-year-olds. The test for which I was preparing my students was vocabulary. I say a word that we had learned in our nursery rhyme unit. Then, I read a sentence containing that word. If the sentence makes sense and the word was used correctly, the student would circle the smiley face on this page. If the word was used incorrectly, they would circle the frown. This task requires abstract thinking, a skill that kindergartners have not yet developed, and it's a foundational problem for this type of test because a smile or a frown is a symbol. And kindergartners think a smile is a smile and a frown is a frown. It doesn't really mean much else. They're developing in that way, though. My first sample vocabulary challenge as we began our practice test was the word market, from the nursery rhyme, to market, to market. I began, "The word is market," I announced. "Who can tell me what a market is?" One boy answered, "I like oranges." Okay, he's on the right track. Who can add to that? "I like apples. I get them at the store." A third child says, "It's where you go and get lots of things." You can see the progression of their thoughts. It's actually incredibly fascinating to hear my children because random thoughts are not random at all. Another student chimes in, "We can get oranges and apples and lots of other types of food at the market." Excellent. So everybody understands a market? A few nod. Now, I will give you a sentence with the word market in it. If the sentence makes sense, you circle that smiley face. But if it's a silly sentence and doesn't make sense, you circle the frown. "Mrs. Dorr, what's a frown?" "Oh, right. Okay, a frown," and I give them a very exaggerated version of my own frown. "If I drop my ice cream on the ground, I am going to frown," and I give them a big frown. So now I read the sentence. "I like to play basketball at the market." Now, does that sentence make sense to you? The students who are not twisting around backwards in their chairs or staring at a thread they've picked off from their uniform nod their heads. Guys, listen, I'll tell you the sentence again. "I like to play basketball at the market." That makes sense? Remember, we said a market is where we shop for food. A hand goes up. Terrell says, "I like soccer." Okay, Terrell, that's great, but did I use the word market correctly in the sentence? I don't know. Another hand. "Yes, Ariana, what do you think?" "My dad took me to a soccer game." Thank you for sharing that, Ariana. I think I have a few kindergarten teachers in this room because they're totally getting it. She picked up on something from the sentence and made what seems to be, but is not, a random connection. Girls, boys, listen to me and look at me and listen. I want you to really think about this. Would you go to a market to play basketball? At this point, everyone seemed to wake up. Finally, I was getting somewhere. "Yes," they cried out. Of course, it would be a total blast to play basketball in the market. So here we find another huge problem with this vocabulary test, a 5- and 6-year-old imagination. A statement that uses a word incorrectly sounds okay to a child whose imagination is not limited by reality. It's the same reason Santa and the Tooth Fairy are real to kindergartners: unencumbered imagination. After explaining why we might not play basketball in the market, I called on a volunteer to come up and circle the frowning face. She went straight to number 3. This was number 1. She skipped 1 and 2 and circled the frown. Why? She's 5 and she's very, very confused by this paper-based test. She's never seen anything like it, and to me it makes sense, but to a 5 or 6-year-old it makes really no sense whatsoever. Give the same student a floor puzzle of ocean life, and she and her friend will knock it out in 10 minutes, strategizing, problem-solving, using incredible language skills, and taking turns with intense concentration. And they'll feel mighty proud of their work. The rest of my 5-year-old test prep went about the same. Then came the real thing. I tested the students in groups of 6 or 7. What are the other 20 or so students doing while I administer the test? They are engaging in an age-appropriate activity with my aide. Thank God I have an aide. I know that many kindergarten teachers do not. But no matter what I plan for them, getting 25 to 6-year-olds to stay somewhat quiet so the other 6 or 7 can test is no small feat. Yet, I have no choice. Testing must be done in small groups since kindergarten children cannot read. They can't read the instructions and they need assistance every step of the way. And here's yet another major problem to testing in kindergarten, the practical issue of noise and movement in the classroom. The results of the test on the first group were mixed. Despite being my higher level students, their very first test was definitely not an easy task. Instruction for anything new in kindergarten is painstaking, but for a developmentally inappropriate task, it is nearly impossible. For example, making sure my test takers, this is a little tiny thing that people don't think of, but if you're a kindergarten teacher, you know about this. Making sure my little test takers have found their place on the page. I cannot just say number 2 like big kids and read the question. I have to say, put your finger on the number 2. Then I repeat. Your finger should be on number 2. Then repeat it. And again, since some have difficulty identifying numbers 1 to 10. Let me see your pencil on, your finger or your pencil on number 2. No, Justin, not on number 3, on number 2. I walk around the room and make sure that each child is on the right number or on a number at all. If you're not watching as a kindergarten teacher, it is common to have a 5-year-old just sit there and do nothing test-related, just look around or think or doodle. And I venture to say that's not just kindergarten. Next, although I haven't taught other grades, next I tested a second group who I knew would have more difficulty. During testing, I walked around to see that a few students had nothing written on their papers. One had circled every face on the whole page. She still does that. She did it like today. Another just circled all the smileys, and one, a very bright little girl named Amelia, had her head, I've changed the names, had her head down on her arms. I tapped her and said, come on, I'm kind of panicky giving these tests. Come on, you need to circle one of the faces for number 5. She lifted her head and looked up at me. Tears streamed down her face. I crouched down next to her. What's wrong, honey? Mrs. Dorr, I'm tired, she cried. I want my mommy. Verbatim, I kid you not, this is exactly what this little girl said to me. And it was a moment I will never forget. I took her test and I said, would you like a nice comfy pillow so you can take a rest? She nodded. So I took her paper and I gave her my big bear paw pillow. And I said, put your head down and relax, honey. So this is kindergarten. We force children to take tests that their brains cannot grasp. We ignore research that proves that children who are 5 and 6 learn best experientially, not with paper-based anything, really. We rob them of precious free play that teaches them how to be good citizens, good friends, good thinkers. We waste precious time teaching and learning time that could be spent learning the foundations of math, reading, and writing, as well as valuable lessons in social studies, science, and health. A number of years ago, when I had more time and less required testing, I devoted an entire week to teaching about an American hero, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The lessons included leadership, injustice, fairness, courage, peace, respect, social skills, nonviolent conflict resolution, honesty, loyalty, making good choices, morality, and democracy. Our rich discussions fostered good language skills, which are the basis of good thinking. and the precursor to good writing. We wrote about our own dreams, ways that we could make the world a better place. I have absolutely no time for these lessons anymore, so they are not taught. Martin Luther King, the week went by with a little emergent reader that they were able to color, and I can tell you it broke my heart. I support and enjoy teaching much of our math and language arts curriculum. I'm not complaining about that. Teaching vocabulary is a valuable practice. However, I contend that testing in these areas at this age is not only meaningless, since it does not accurately measure a child's academic ability, but it is actually counterproductive and even damaging. Further, I contend that my students are no further along at the end of the year than they would be if we eliminated most of this testing. I have like one more sentence. It's a really strong one. It's a strong end. I know. What?
No, because I've only guessed you in one sentence.
I swear I timed this. Okay.
Great, thanks, Phil.
I get it. I totally get it. In fact, they might be further along because of the time we could spend engaging in meaningful education. Finally, I believe that a child's first experience with formal education should be fun and exciting and give them confidence, not stress and fear because they didn't measure up. And the only other thing I'll say is in response to what you asked for solid recommendations, what I have always wondered or thought is that we should be gathering up the best of the best. That is not necessarily me. I think I have some good ideas, but I'm not a terribly experienced teacher. A teacher who's been teaching for 20 or 30 years, and I'm not saying that a 15-year teacher doesn't have extremely valid opinions and thoughts and wisdom, but teachers who have seen, let's say, 20 years of kindergartners know that their brain is the same as it was 20 years ago, and they are the ones who should be talking about what should be tested and how.
That completes our public testimony session for Jersey City. We'll be having one in Jackson tomorrow night, and we have one also for Camden County, which will be rescheduled. It was snowed out yesterday, so there'll be other opportunities. Certainly, you have our website. We are accepting all types of testimony and submissions on our website, so please take advantage of that component as well. If you have anything that you want to chat about, I'll be here for a few more minutes if you want to chat. Thank you all for coming. This is super valuable to us. I know it's not easy. Marcia, you want to close?
I just want to echo the Commissioner's appreciation, and this has been really quite instructive and thought-provoking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a safe trip for everyone.